There's been a lot of information talked about this morning. Owen gave, from my standpoint, a good description of what cloud computing is, and I'll never disagree about things like energy and security, etc. So I'm not really going to plug HP as a vendor. I'm going to talk about a couple of things. And I think one interesting notion and one thing we should think about when we think about cloud is this notion of service. And that's why inside HP we don't really use the term cloud. We just talk about everything as a service. Doesn't matter whether it's how you get a CPU, doesn't matter how you get an application, how you outsource a business process, how you do something differently. It's really about the service economy. So I was very happy to see the slides this morning. And so when you think about that, think in terms of a service consumer and a service provider with a contract in the middle, which really talks about the terms and conditions. We can talk about those two sides. And I want to quick how many people here are CIOs or database administrators or admin people, application developers? And so there's a couple of people. So I would say one provocative statement. On the service provider side, just leave it to the experts. Don't even worry about it. Don't even go there. I mean, I can stand here and talk about what HP can do for you, and we can talk about replicas, etc. It doesn't really matter. It's very hard. It's very complex. And so if you just want to buy into the notion of cloud and what cloud can do for you, and I think it's more interesting to talk about the consumer side, which I'll do in a minute. I know I've only got 10 minutes. The provision side is really, really hard. And you've got to think about companies like HP will fight very hard to make sure that we get a slice of that pie like every other company. We do about $40 billion at the moment in terms of enterprise business, helping people with their servers, their storage, their networking, their services, etc. $20 billion in services. So we have a deep understanding of what that means, what it means for businesses. And let's be frank, a lot of the businesses are the ones that are driving the economies in the cloud at the moment. And it's very, very hard satisfying those people. You think of the four basic things you've really got to understand to become a good service provider. So I'm hoping that I will convince people really to focus on the consumer side rather than the service provider side. There's the technology. We talked about the security, the servers, the networking, the storage, where the SAN, NAS, Bing, Bang, Bomb is the best way to go. You shouldn't really care if you're in the cloud model. People like us should be taking care of it. There's the facility side. The facility side is really hard. I mean, if anyone thinks you can just take a room, put a lot of servers in there, connect it to the internet, switch it on, put your applications on top and call it a cloud service provider, you're in for a very big shock. I mean, it's not as simple as that. Actually building out a 50,000 square foot or 100,000 square foot data center to put those servers in and keep that thing powered and keep it cooled and make it fail over requirements, etc. So it's a very hard thing. We know we have about over 800,000 square foot of data centers which we manage for customers. We have 32,000 racks in there full of mainly HP equipment, which we manage for our customers, and we provide services back. And it's a bloody hard thing to do. And so I think what you're starting to find is there are companies, and I'll talk about HP, and then we're going to talk about Salesforce later on, the whole infrastructure stack, the IaaS stack, the PaaS stack, whatever you want to call it. My main talk here, and I wanted to put that out there because I wanted to have a bit of a debate about it later on, is forget about that side. What I really think people should concentrate on, and I think which is the power of the cloud, it's the power of the cloud for economies and how you want to create new jobs and do different things. It's really on the consumption side. So imagine there are these service providers out there who can do these things for you. They can provide you with CPU if you really want to build your application. They can provide you with CRM functionality. They can run your email systems for you. Why do you want to bother with that stuff? So, I can't remember the gentleman's name earlier on. I'm going to come over here, sorry. Carlos, you were asking around the CIO role. How is the CIO role going to change? The CIO role is going to change dramatically. And it's not because the CIO wants his role to change. It's just going to happen. We have an effect that's going to be hitting us soon. And again, I look around the room, and it's very interesting for us to be talking about the future of the cloud and IT, etc. When I bet none of us in this room would call ourselves anywhere close to Generation Y. But Generation Y are the people who are hitting the workplace. These are the people who are in college at the moment. These are the people who are walking around with their iPhones, text messaging with their friends, using their Facebooks, etc. Doing all of the stuff that they're doing. The people who are used to the internet, people who are used to using services, people who are used to interacting that way. Now they're leaving college. They're coming into the workplace. They're going to be directors of marketing. They're going to be CIOs. They're going to be VPs of sales. They're going to be CEOs. They're going to change the way we do things. And so we had a little side conversation earlier on because we've got is it Paul or Peter? Sorry? Is it Peter or Paul? Martin, I got it wrong totally. Martin said, oh, I hear that HP's a customer of Amazon Web Services. You know,
Actually, HP Labs.
HP Labs, and we are. And there's a very good reason for that, and it just goes to show the difficulty of the CIO role in this. You know, my engineers, they want to do something. They want to run an experiment. Do they wait for HP IT to provide them the 10 servers and the storage so they can put their application on and do this thing? Or do they go to Amazon Web Service, go to the internet, sign up for an account, pay 10 cents per CPU hour, build their Linux image, put it out there, run their test, and take it away? Things will change. And that's why my engineers are using the web service, because our IT sucks. And by the way, I shouldn't be so hard on the HP IT. They have a hell of a task. We have 300,000 people in the organization. We acquire companies, EDS, we're about to take on 3Com. They do a fantastic job, but they're run as a traditional IT shop. They're not run as kind of like a cloud shop where we're looking at really what is the business process innovation, the different business models that the cloud really can let you do. And so one example, we were talking about this at dinner last night, is really just to look at the different things that can be done. And another thing is, like, we talk a lot about the old applications and how the cloud can help us move the old applications onto this cloud, and things about multi-threading and, you know, is SAP ready for the cloud, et cetera, et cetera. Just forget about that stuff. It's running, it works, just leave it, don't put it on the cloud. You can build interfaces around it if you want to put your cloud stuff on there. But think about the new things you want to be able to do. You know, I spend a lot of time in Asia, particularly places like Singapore, Malaysia, Korea, et cetera. And there's a very youthful population there, and they're full of great ideas, and they want to do things. So they're looking for services whereby they can do those things. And so one little thing we helped a group of people do was to look for a way to say, could the cloud actually change an industry? And because, you know, most people know HP as a printing company, we chose the magazine industry, and we just did little social experiments. We launched something called MagCloud, www.magcloud.com. And the whole notion here was, is there a different way using the cloud of actually producing magazines? So let's just, and I tested this on Monica last night, let's assume Monica has got hundreds of pairs of shoes. She's got her Pradas and her Gucci and her Jimmy Choos, et cetera, et cetera. She loves her shoes, and she's taking pictures of the shoes, and she writes about the manufacturers and different clothes that can go with those shoes. And she wants to produce a magazine around that, maybe a quarterly magazine. She's a fashionista, et cetera, et cetera. And she goes down to Vogue to say, hey, I want to produce this magazine. Vogue's just going to laugh her out she's never going to get a chance. So what about now if she can go somewhere in the cloud, somewhere like magcloud.com, and she can put that PDF out there? And let's just assume that I'm interested in fashion and shoes, which is a far stretch of the imagination, but I'm looking for some ideas for my wife, etc., and I go onto this site, and I find Monica's magazine, and she set a price of $5 on that magazine, and I click and I buy. Monica gets $4.50. HP, being the service provider, gets 50 cents. Doesn't have to be HP. I mean, someone could come up with the idea of doing MagCloud and taking that transaction money. And what happens in the cloud? There are different payment vendors in there, different printers in there. A one-off publication gets printed. It gets given to a distributor. That magazine is sent to me from the cloud. And just think about how the ecosystem can be changing now. You can actually change the economics, the dynamics between publishers and subscribers. You can bring different people in there, advertisers. If people know the type of magazines I provide, or I'm interested in, they can advertise to me. It's a one-off print. Think about sustainability. Instead of doing a 100,000 print run of Monica's magazine, it's a one-off thing. So think about the green sustainability. So what I would say is think about the cloud not just in terms of what it means to be a service provider and get all hung up about infrastructure and speeds and feeds and storage, etc. But think about how it will change economies, because I think that's the important thing when we look at, you know, how we want to provide innovative, fun workplaces for the Generation Ys who are hitting our companies, and how we want to harness that creativity. Do we want them spend their time administrating, keeping old systems going, trying to move them to the cloud? Or do we want them innovating the business models for the companies that we work with? So I think I've taken my time, so I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you.